Good evening, Bula Vinaka, Namaste. You're watching Fiji Village Straight Talk, and I'm Vijay Narayan. Our guest tonight, Swire Shipping Fijian Drua CEO Mark Evans and Drua Head of Commercial and Marketing Hussein. It is quite timely for the two gentlemen to be sitting in our studio tonight. Number one, we've had a massive win again against the defending champions, the Crusaders, just a few days ago. And going into the competition this early, definitely a confidence booster for the franchise, and a lot more things can roll out if the Ducks all get into the row in the favor of the Drua. And how do we get those things rolling? The other issue is that we've had the Drua franchise talking about its development, its professional development and growth on the show here exactly 1 year ago. And it's timely on how things are progressing, so that you, as the fans of the Drua, the followers of the team, the people of Fiji, understand the mechanics at work and how things are progressing. So thank you again, Mark and Shane, for making yourselves available.
Naka, happy to be here.
As you said, huge win for the Drua men's team for the second year in a row at Churchill Park against the defending champions, the Crusaders. What is the feeling in camp after getting that win?
I think, well, obviously, you're always pleased when you win. And we were equally disappointed the week before. So that was a game against Moana, and they're a much improved team. I think that's safe to say. But that was a disappointing result. We really didn't perform very well, apart from the last 20 minutes, and we felt we let ourselves down a bit, really. We played pretty well against the Crusaders. I don't think we were right on top of all parts of our game. And I thought they were not that good.
Pretty ordinary?
Pretty ordinary, which is not something you often say about a Crusaders team. But they're obviously going through a period of transition. I thought the most encouraging thing about it was the way we dealt with the last 20 minutes. You know, we've been behind, we didn't panic. We came back, we got a score ahead, we got 2 scores ahead, and we were pretty much in control of the game. They had a little bit of pressure, but not huge. There wasn't much in the way of goal line stands or anything like that. So I think that was the most pleasing thing about it. But it's a sort of game that we thought we should win before. If we ever think, we don't really think like that, but you look at it, you do occasionally look at games and think, ooh, that's an opportunity, or alternatively, that's going to be tough. That's a tough fixture, which tends to be away. Yeah. So, yeah, pleased, but very tough fixture this week. Probably the hardest. 3 teams to go to are probably the Chiefs, the Blues, and traditionally the Crusaders. Although I think the Australian franchises have improved a lot this year already. I think it's a much more even competition. Yeah. I think the Tars look better, the Reds definitely look better, and I think the Rebels look better. I think that week 1, that very strange game they had against, was it the Brumbies? I think it was, wasn't it? I felt all the way through pre-season the Rebels are going to be, I know they've got their issues and this, who knows what the future holds for them, but you look at their squad, it's a really good team. It's a really good squad. So I do think the competition's leveled up a bit. And Moana are definitely a better team, no question. And actually, Western Force, I know they haven't won a game yet, but they should have won a game by now. They were well out ahead against the Rebels away. That was a really pretty good performance, and they should have beaten the Brumbies at the weekend. So even though they haven't got a win, they're a very, very competitive team. So, I do think you're going to see a tighter league. I think there's going to be less of a gap between the bottom half and the top half. I think that, and we just need to keep concentrating on what we're doing. And I think there's enough competition within the tournament now that other teams will beat each other. So we just got to concentrate on. I've said right from the beginning of the year, our aim is to win more games than we won last year. That's the aim. And then where that leaves us at the end, that'll take care of itself.
Shane, you were aware of the low talker heat. How did that fare for the team from your assessment?
Well, we play in it, so we're quite used to the conditions. Not so much for the visiting teams, but to be fair, we go and play in the winter in New Zealand too. So it's it's all up. It's pretty fair across the board. My biggest takeaway off the field the Saturday was the fans. They were jovial. They were in it right through the 80. And that moment when Simi kicked the ball out to obviously get us the win and confirm the end of the game, the fans went crazy, and that's exactly the atmosphere that we obviously want to promote and want to see. The fans really do lift the team. When there's a lull in the game, our audio team, I gotta give part to CFL here because you do run our matchday audio. They did a fantastic job with our MC Fred, who just keeps hyping the crowd up, whether we're on attack or in defense. So off the field, plays a part in what it was a very, very good Saturday afternoon for everyone.
There's people talking about the best fans are the Drua fans when they're coming in to watch in Lautoka or Suva.
Yeah.
We've sort of got that tag going, even Stan Sport and others are using, talking about a cameraman not at his stated location
in
the first season that he was going and high-fiving with the crowd. So people falling off trees while watching. Those are priceless shots from here.
There's a priceless shots. Not so much priceless on the liability side. There is a price, but it's outside the stadium, so it's okay. Look, we don't say it without meaning it. And we coined the phrase last year quite prominently. They are the world's best fans because they're so invested in the performance and success of the team. Not just success, they're behind us when we lose as well. And obviously everyone gives their opinion, which is great, and that's what we expect in our business. But they really are genuinely behind both the men's and women's teams, and long may it continue.
As you said, Mark, wins are already very good for any team. What does this mean for the Drua franchise?
I don't think one game means a heap, if I'm honest. I think it was like last year when we went away, exactly the same. We went away week one, although we won then against Moana in Auckland. We didn't play very well. And then we went to a super round in Melbourne, and again, we were a bit patchy, and then we won in week 3. I think it's no secret, is it? We're pretty tough to beat at home. And I think the crowd's changed a bit, actually. I got the impression early last year they were still almost like just happy to be there. It was just a novelty still. Oh, look, Well, I know we'd had 2 games on the island the year before, but I thought early last year it was still very much sort of, oh, isn't this great? It's just great. Never mind the result, almost. I don't think it's quite like that anymore. I think, and this is good. Don't get me wrong. I'm not being critical of this at all. I think the expectation now is higher, and that's fine. I also think they're sort of more invested in the game rather than the event, if that makes any sense. The crowd now is reacting more to events on the pitch. Yeah. And there are quiet patches. There were times last year there was no quiet patch at all. Yeah. I thought there were a bit on, but still as enthusiastic as ever and as vocal as ever at certain appropriate moments. But I think that shows a growing maturity amongst the crowd as much as it does, which is sort of mirrors a bit of a growing maturity amongst the playing group, which we talked about earlier, which is like the way they closed the game out, the way they managed it. Let's be honest, it was a much more conclusive win over the Crusaders than it was last year. Last year we were behind, we nicked a try near the end, then we got a penalty and we whacked it over with the last kick of the game, and if Kemu misses it, we lose, and if he didn't, it was really, really tight. I mean, to be honest, we'd won that game 3 or 4 minutes out, and we'd been in control of it for quite a while, because once you got to about 76 minutes, they're not going to score twice. We
kept the Crusaders scoreless.
And kept them scoreless, second half, which is pleasing. So, it's one of those areas that you think, even week 1 and week 2, there were bits of our game, I thought, that were better than last year. Even though we lost heavily in Auckland against the Blues, and we were very disappointed with the performance and the result against Moana. I thought this last week even in those 2 games, I thought our line-out had improved from last year. I thought our defensive line-out had improved. Our maul defence had improved since last year. Our scrum is still pretty strong, although there were 1 or 2. I mean, I think the Blues have got a really strong scrum, and we were very good on our ball, not quite so good on theirs. But I think there were some areas of the game that you could definitely see progress, although the end result was disappointing. I think the key point we're starting to learn is you only have to fall down in one area at this level, and that can almost be the game. It's a complicated game, rugby, and your line out, your scrum, your maul defence, your offensive play, your kick tactics, your kick chase. There's a whole, and I haven't even listed them all. You've only got to fall down in 1 or 2 and you lose. It really is, and I think we're starting to understand this a bit better. It's not just about, that was a great try or whatever. You've got to put the whole thing together and do it consistently, and I think we're showing some signs of starting to do that a little bit better than we were.
What about the partners that you deal with, Shane, every year? You'd like to make sure the partners are happy. After a massive win like the one against the defending champions, what does that mean for the relationships?
It obviously is very, very helpful. If your partners are happy, you're doing quite well. And after Saturday, we got heaps of messages and phone calls from most of our sponsors saying how happy they were. There's even those who were not in the stadium. Just how happy and proud they were of the team. If you instill that sense of pride, then the partnership withstands the test of results. So, just like you've won, I'm happy to support you. You lose, I'm still happy to support you. It's important that keeps happening, and that's only happens if you do what you're meant to do, which is to give much more value back to the partners than what they put in you. And I think at the Drua we do that quite well.
The fact is that you spoke about last 20, we held on, and Crusaders known to control the game in the last 20, so that was quite amazing to see. And the Drua definitely, if it had a few good finishes, would have scored a few more tries, no doubt about that. But of course, it was a high pressure game with playing the defending champions. Even if they losing a few players in the past few months, with people like Richie Moonga not there, Cody Taylor, Will Jordan getting injured out of the season, Sam Whitelock not there, definitely it would have been hurting them. But going to the next issue, we've got the Chiefs this week.
Away from
in
home.
Chiefs home ground. Talking about Mr. Drua winning away from home.
Absolutely there's no secret here, is there? At some point we need to start winning more games away from the island. I don't believe this is a peculiarly Fijian thing. I really don't. Although I do recognise there are some significant home advantages we have with the crowd and the climate, and etc. But most new teams, or teams that come up from a level, tend to start building by winning at home. That's if you look across all sports. How do you start to build up your record and improve? You start by winning your home games. That's because all the data is very, very clear. There is. We could argue about what is home field advantage and how much is it worth and why is it, but it's a thing. It exists in all sports. So we shouldn't take our home record for granted. We need to keep focused on that. However, as the team grows, clearly the next stage is to start to winning a couple outside the island. and that's just a process. That's, you just have to, think hard about. We do have, again, some things that work against us when we're away. We have a lot more travelling than virtually every other team, apart from probably Force, who are in a similarly geographically sort of isolated position, and I expect the Highlanders would probably say that, because actually, although they're not that far, they've got no direct flights anywhere. So they've got a lot of travelling too, to those three teams. And that does have an impact. No point trying to pretend that doesn't have an impact. It does. It's not an excuse, it's a fact. So it's a work in progress. We had a couple of games last year we maybe could have nicked it. I mean, I know we won one game away in Auckland against Moana, but we came close in Brisbane last year against the Reds. We were in the game at the Brumbies with not long to go.
Against the Waratahs as well.
And then I felt at Sydney, which I felt was our most complete away performance last year, although it wasn't as tight as the Reds game. Again, you think, well, that was pretty competitive. So one of our many challenges is to start to change some of those close away defeats into narrow away wins. And it'll happen. I don't know when, but it'll happen. And what we also need to try to avoid or reduce is we got a hiding a couple of times away last year. Sometimes we played really poorly at the Highlanders. We got smashed in the playoff. The Force was a really disappointing game. There were some away games when we didn't really perform like we'd hoped to. So it's not just a question of we need to start winning away. We also, maybe the first stage is you do both. You try and, your aim is to be competitive in all the away games. If you're competitive in all the away games, you'll win a couple. It's not just a question of, you look at Italy in the Six Nations just last week. First win in 11 years at home. But listening to some of them over the weekend and even this morning on the way in, they're already talking about, well, this means nothing if we don't go to Cardiff and win. So, their expectations are raising, and as I said, our aim is to win more games year on year compared to last year. Last year we won 6. Well, if we only win at home, it doesn't give us much margin for error, does it? Because we only got 7 home games. So, let's hope that we can put something together. I do think we're improving. Generally, I think our so far, it's a small data set. It's only 3 games in. And as I say, I just think we've got fewer weaker areas. And I think, as I said to you earlier, at this level, you only need to fall under or fall apart in a single area, and that's probably the game. And at a lower level, you can say, well, our lineup wasn't great today, but we worked our way through it and we did. Yeah, occasionally that happens at this level, but not very often.
Shane, you've been with the team from when it started. Of course, we started in Lennox Head, the home base away from home, and playing all games away from home. A lot of preparation time is now changing. The team has had more time to prepare, especially for this season. If you can talk about that for people.
Yeah, absolutely. This pre-season just passed was really our second only full pre-season. You can't really count the back end of 2021 moving into 2022 because we got the team together, everyone rushed over to Lennox, set up camp. There's a lot of process, a lot of building, but you need that sort of stuff. You need that to build on right? So last year first full preseason, this year a really good full preseason. Although we did get our Flying Fijians quite late in the piece, it was around about December.
Early December.
Trying to think, but there is an absolute difference in the way that the players are now compared to a year ago and then the year before. They know what's expected of them. They know the work they have to do. They know the team, the bench strength if you were, the quality in the whole squad is so much that they know that no position is secured. So there's a lot less complacency. So I have actually seen the growth in these young men, and then I'm sure the women will be the same because we've only just got them. But the growth has been very, very obvious. You know, we've got a whole bunch of young single men 2 years ago. A lot of them are now, family men. They've got growth off the field, growth on the field, both professionally and personally. It's wonderful to see. So our Vuvale has grown quite a lot. So a few new, little ones running around as part of the Vuvale, which is really good to see.
I think the point Shane made there about the age of the squad is quite important as well, that people are to understand. It's certainly the youngest. If you look at the squad as a whole, the 37 or 38 players in the senior squad, it's incredibly young still, even now, third year.
What is the average age?
The average age is something about, I did this the other week, so I know this. It's about 24.8. Something of that. Now that is really very, very young.
But only one person who's sort of pulling the average down.
But then when you look at this, there's a cluster of around between 23 and 27.
Yeah.
And then a group of younger ones, even in the main squad. So Isaiah and Misaki Vathivate and a number of others. Philip Isikeli. Yeah. So there's. And then, but then what we haven't got yet, and this will just take time, we've not got any significant number, with all due apologies to Masaki Donge and Mesu, who are the two over the age of 27. There's only two of them. I think that's right. Fair, yeah. That I've never seen an age profile like that in a professional rugby squad. That is extraordinarily unusual. But that's just a function of the fact that how the team was put together.
Yeah.
It was COVID. You couldn't bring players back from Europe. You had to go with players who were based on the island then. Yeah. Therefore, it was bound to be a squad weighted towards the younger end of the age profile. Yeah. I mean, we're through, as Shane said, third pre-season, and the average age is still only 24.8. Yeah. So I think last year it was probably about 23.9 or something. I don't know. It was very, very young. Yeah. So not only are a lot of these players quite young in terms of, you'll hear Mick Byrne say this a lot, and he's right. Not only are they quite young in terms of training age, they're actually quite young in terms of just pure age. Yeah. So if you look at very, very successful teams in all sports, it's extremely unusual they haven't got a balanced age profile. In other words, they haven't got a reasonably large group, sort of 28 to 30, to 28 and above, a group in the middle, and then a bunch of youngsters, and it's sort of reasonably evenly spread. And your average age is 27, 28. I mean, you look at the Springboks when they won the World Cup, their average age was nearly 30. Yeah. That's not a coincidence. It's really not.
And it's incredible to think that someone like Frank Lomani, 48 Super Rugby caps, not all for us, still sub 27, still under 27.
So on to my next question about that, because there's a lot of people saying about the mental toughness when it comes to certain decision making and other issues in some of the toughest games at this level of competition, as you said, that at times that crucial decision making at that time can make you lose a game.
Yes.
What type of work is going in, knowing that we've got a fairly young side?
A lot of it, you just have to be patient, because a lot of it you just have to learn through experience. I mean, it's almost impossible to replicate the pressure of an actual game. So, for example, let me give you from this season. In Auckland, in game one, we hadn't had a good half. We had a good start, and then they had a very good 20 minutes, and we didn't see the ball. And then right near half time, you're thinking, well, we just need to get into the sheds now and regroup and then come back. And we are traditionally a stronger second than first half team, which says a lot for our conditioning and also for the way we're trying to play. And we didn't. We had the ball, we had control of it, and we made a couple of really poor decisions and execution, and gave them another very soft try, which now, you learn from that, you learn from that. and then the week after we were in the same situation and we nearly did it. We didn't quite, again, not quite, but got much closer to it than we did the week before. So some of it is purely learning through experience, going in, being in the situation, making not dealing with it particularly well, and then using that to learn and to grow. So some of it is purely patience. Yeah. The other bit of it, of course, is doing what we call sort of scenario planning, which is you sort of try as far as you can to set scenarios for the team, to problems, if you like, to solve a sort of what if. Right, okay, here's the situation. What will we do here? What's our key things here? And that takes quite a lot of time. And so that's a combination. The combination is learning through doing in the actual games themselves. You take learnings out of that. And secondly, scenario or situational play in training, which helps you learn quicker. But let be under no illusions. The longer you've played the game at a very high level, the easier that becomes. So yeah, it's true, no point shying away from it, that because of our age profile, we've still got a lot of growth in that area, and I think everybody in the organisation recognises that.
And everybody can see it in action. We'll be back after this break.
I've always resorted to drugs because of the work that I do as a coping mechanism.
You said you started sex work and drugs at the same time?
I was 12 years old.
You believe, based on the current situation, your salary and allowances should be reviewed and reviewed?
Definitely, I think it should be reviewed to reflect what is there in the market.
Is the government of the day promoting nepotism within our community and hatred towards Indo-Fijians?
Thank you very much. The answer is no.
$1 in $3 of our taxes goes towards servicing our debt. So you can't say it's nothing.
There's also the need to do financial inclusion a bit better.
What is your message to the people who may rate you as not good enough for finals rugby?
Success doesn't just happen overnight.
Fiji Village Straight Talk with Vijay Narayan, brought to you by the Ministry of Health and Medical Services.
Nisambolo binakatare nandreng ngamodengu and VTFM ngono mlitoka ni Mike Randro
sebuta out mama ayaw mikan galon bola how my wish some tagi chilango bing de miska kana tadina
oi ono no sala de sante miste logo
apa ngor oi apa ngor ge pamutaki tamo ngor ko ni
out domo no tarwego
right
quando manda que baka iko me lewa ene vi damba kana no mutai
ne bera manda ni dola lubengu se rose vi na lubengu ko elo tilio ola sagama de mola sami kemra mon reni bimbi umai
Nandrenga modengu and VTFM and beto korbe na katsungane Punjas, proud sponsors of the Fijian Drua. Ngo Mike Randua.
Rock sebuta out mama yo bike galo bula namaka.
Welcome back. You're watching Fiji Village Straight Talk. I'm Vijay Narayan. Our guest tonight, the Swire Shipping Fijian Drua CEO Mark Evans and Drua Head of Commercial and Marketing Shane Hussein. Just before the break, we were talking about the average age of the team, the growth that we can already see. What are some of the team's challenges that you've managed to overcome in the last 3 years that you've said that these are some of the big tick-off items that we now winning as far as a team exercise is concerned?
I think we've made some big strides in team behaviours in terms of a better understanding of what requirements on and off the field are. If it's this is your employment, this is what you do for a living. I think we've made some big strides in that area. You never get to where you want to get to, but that's what you strive for. So I think we've made some big strides in terms of off-field behaviours particularly. I think we're a lot fitter. So physically, I think we've made some big strides in the conditioning. I don't think we're there yet. Actually, there. I would definitely say we are still not where we think we can get to. And when I used to work in the NRL, we had a saying that you needed 3 full pre-seasons to be a conditioning to be physically be an NRL player. There were the odd exception to that, obviously, but generally at least 3 full pre-seasons. So actually, that's next year. So and it becomes harder for them as more of them get picked for the Flying Fijians, because that telescopes your pre-season, as Shane mentioned earlier. So if you play for the Flying Fijians and you go to the World Cup, you don't come back to early December for a late Feb start. Well, actually, if you go to the European Tour, you don't come back until mid-December. It's even late. So this year, when there's 4 games, I think, in Europe in November, and a number of our players will be on that tour, of course. We don't know how many, but a significant number. They'll come back even later. So, but that's true. That's no different to the Aussie teams. It's no different to the Kiwi teams. They do exactly the same. They're international players. The only difference being, and I'm not sure anyone's quite twigged this yet, there's no other Super Rugby team that will provide so many players to a national team. So you can't go to the Waratahs or the Crusaders or whoever and say, well, how many you got? 18, 19? Well, that's how many we've got. So we have a bigger proportion of the squad. We'll get into internet. We'll go into those games, which we're absolutely chuffed about that, and that's part of our purpose, is that to support and improve the national team. It's part of the reason the project is what it is. But I still think we've got strides to make in conditioning, and that'll take another little time yet, because it's very hard to make conditioning gains in the season. The games come too quick, and you've got to recover and the rest of it. So I think that's been an area, and I suppose those are the first 2. I suppose the third one is what you've already alluded to, Vijay. We're getting better. We're nowhere near where we want to be, but we're getting better at managing the game. So in terms of understanding the 80-minute process, I do think we're making some quite big strides about that, and I do think we're I know this because a lot of people are starting to say, you don't really play like a Fijian team, do you? And I go, oh, that's and the answer is no, we do very much play like a Fijian team. You look at us in the last 20 minutes against last 2 weeks, both the last 20 minutes we played just like you expect, play with a lot of width, play with a lot of ball in hand, etc., etc. No, we look what we are. We're a Fijian team, but we don't play like that all the time, and we don't play like that all the game. We manage the game better than we used to. Whereas I looked at I wasn't here, but I looked at some of the vision in year 1, and we scored an inordinate number of points from unstructured phase play.
Broken play. Yeah.
Broken play. Yeah. And you're thinking, well, actually, you can't carry on like that, because the opposition ain't stupid. And they do a lot of analysis, and we do a lot of analysis, and you go and think, well, if they're going to play like that, we just won't give them any broken play. Yeah. So you've got to be able to be a bit more nuanced and a little broader than that. And I think we have. Again, you asked where have we made strides. I do think we've made good strides in some of those areas. I mean, I think our exit plays now are a lot better than they were. I think our kicking game is better than it was. Our scrum has been pretty good for a while now. We've still got a bit of work to do on the opposition ball, but on our own ball, we're looking pretty strong now. We don't have too many problems. Touching wood here, tempting fate. We don't have too many problems on our own put-in these days. We've got a pretty stable scrummage base. Yeah. Our line-out's better, but to be honest, in year 1 it was terrible, and now it's okay. It's not great yet, but we're working on it. So I do think all those things, when you get those bits and pieces start to develop, you do then improve your game management, because you've got more things to go to and you recognise when to go to them. And I think that's been a big change in the last
It's
year or
interesting you talked about broken play and how the opposition can get onto it, because I think season 1 you could see as the season progressed, there was a big effort by the opposing teams to deny or starve the ball off.
Get it off the pitch.
Kick the ball away, throw it away.
Drive it into the corner.
And what we saw maybe last Saturday, and I termed it controlled chaos by the Drua.
Yeah.
Because there was, at times, the Drua with the ball looked chaotic, but it was controlled chaos because the Drua seemed like they knew what they were doing with the ball.
Yeah, I think that's fair play, and I think the key point on that is that we're scoring more points and doing more with ball that we win, not just that goes loose.
Yeah.
We're not as reliant as we're still really good at it. Don't forget.
We'll punish you.
We're not so dependent on them dropping the ball
Scraps,
or a loose kick or whatever. We're building much more from our own set piece and from our own set plays, and I think that is giving us a more rounded game.
Shane, from your perspective, the type of support that the players require, you've been there from when the team got together in Sydney with all different sorts of challenges, being away from home. I remember, talking to Narayan Booker saying, they had to constantly watch the plate, what was on the plate and things like that.
Yeah.
How is that coming along?
Oh, it's much better. It's much more different to where it is now. But before that, I just want to touch on one off-field changes we've had. Just more resources. We've been able to give the players, the playing group and the coaches what they need to, the resources they need to perform at this level. From simple things like a dedicated medical room, which is fantastic, has what you need, it gets the job done. And the recent acquisition of the Fiji OS field, literally a 5-minute walk away up the road. So our teams are not on a bus off to Prince Charles Park or the international school for at least 40 minutes one way. And that's so saving 80 minutes just travel time.
3 times a week.
3 times a week just saves so much. It just gives so much time back to the players, so they're able to have a decent training run. And we are right there with all the extras that we need to support them, whether it's hydration requirements or anything else. We are able to provide them now. We're in a stronger position. That's obviously it's a cycle, isn't it? You earn more money, you can put more into the team. It's a simple fact.
You get more funders, you get more sponsors, you get better crowds,
you
or
can
better yield. You can, we're not an organisation that we want to be. Well, we are going to be profitable, but actually, you just plough it back in. I mean, there's no point. Our core purpose. Well, we've got a number of core purposes, but the central purpose is to win footy games. I mean, that's why we're here and make the country proud. That's our purpose. So you need to get into that virtuous circle where you provide better resources, you pay the players more, that they stay for longer, etc. All that it all works as a piece. But Shane's absolutely right. You forget because you're living it every day. You forget. Oh yeah, that's new this year. Oh yeah, that's new this year. And then we were in a meeting. Both were that yesterday. We're going. All right. Okay. So what's the capital expenditure for next year? What are we going to put in? Do we do that or do we do that? And Shane, in your business, I'm sure you can't do everything you want to do. You haven't got endless resources. There's an opportunity cost always. If we do that, we can't do that. Right. Well, which one are we going to do then? Which is more important?
And ideally, the more important criteria is what's best for the team. Almost always.
Yeah, almost always. And at the moment, one of the things we're talking about is because we've now got the women's team as well. And at the next year we want to bring them in out of a camp-based situation, which has always been the historic way that teams in Fiji prepare. Well, we don't do that for the Drua men, and we shouldn't do it for the Drua women. So,
if you can explain that, because a lot of Fijians may not know that the Drua men do not have a camp.
No, we don't. That's not how you run professional teams. It's different if you're the national team, because you are you are by definition on campaigns. You know, you look at the schedule they've got. They've got the July campaign, they've got the APAC campaign, and they've got the European campaign, and that's their season, okay, into 3 sort of little campaign bits in different parts of the world. You know, you can't, and so you have to be sort of camp-based. We're not. We're here for 4 months playing, 2.5, 3 months pre-season, half the squad away for the international season. You have to have the players living in the area. Okay, so that was a big change. Getting people average settlement, and they live in the area, so they live in the Nandi Latoka sort of area. There are not many live in Latoka because Shane lives there, so it's
only Penny and I.
It's a disincentive. And then they, and then they come to work in the area, and it's going to be the same for the women from next season. At the moment, because it was really short, we didn't take it. It didn't all go through until mid-December. Just before Christmas.
We signed the contract all December.
So we put them all into the Tanoa in near the airport, and that's the traditional way it's always been done in Fiji. But next year, all the players are going to have to move and live in the area, and we'll increase their salaries to enable them to do that, and we'll reduce all the camps are really expensive. They're really, really expensive. It doesn't matter how you either put them in inadequate accommodation, which we're not prepared to do, or it costs you a lot of money. So it's a lot more efficient also for the players, men or women, right? Which happens in every other country. This is where your place of work is. This is where you live. You've got to be able to get to work. So that's up to you. You're an adult. And then, we travel. But we travel for games. But that's only, 6-7 times a season. Even with pre-season, maybe 8.
A question about getting players. Initially, when we had a discussion about a lot of our good age group players coming off the deans, and they were being picked off by scouts and all over the place, many going to France, some getting actually not so good deals and losing out on and maybe not finishing off their rugby career well. Then we've had cases of bad sports injuries, bad injuries at the secondary school level, and then coming off that and looking for opportunities but hardly finding things. I know that Drua has done a whole lot of players have had corrective surgery.
Yes, that's
we can talk about how you have dealt with that.
It's a work in progress. I think I'm on record as many times saying the biggest challenge for us in the long run is to hold on to our very best players for as long as we possibly can. And I suppose there are three parts to this, and I think we've done a pretty good job on the first two, and we're going to put a lot more resource from June into the third one. The first one is, do you lose players, your established players, to leagues that pay more money, which effectively comes down to Japan and France. UK a little bit, but it's quite hard. Maybe the UK a little bit as well, but not nearly as much as those other two. And I think we've done a pretty good job with that. We lost Kala and Joe last year, which was a shame. Both of those signed really very early, and partly, I think, certainly in Joe's case, at the time he wasn't maybe a recognised starter, and then did a breakout season, I think probably which he stayed. But these things happen. You make your judgments, don't you? So this year, I think it's highly unlikely we'll lose anybody significant. We've done most of our re-signings for 25. They're not all announced yet. They will be soon. I don't think we'll lose many. But we're realistic in that section. You know, at 26, 27, a certain type of player will still go to Europe and to earn really good money.
Yeah.
And we don't have a problem with that at all. In fact, we're pleased. We want them to earn really good money in the highest paying markets in the world of rugby, to look after their families and extended families and all the rest of it. That's great, all right? What we don't like is them going at 21 or 19, okay? And we also, over time, and this will probably be way beyond my time, once they've been for 3 or 4 years, we will be looking to bring some, not all, but some of them back in to help with that issue I mentioned earlier, which is our age profile is skewed down to the lower end. So, you know, go at 26, 27, play for 4 years, you'd still only be 31, 31. You might want to come back and play 2 more years for the Drua, maybe leading into the next World Cup. You know, that because the playing commitments of Super Rugby are much less in terms of number, so you can maybe extend your career and make another World Cup for the Flying Fijians. I think that'll start to happen. So, you know, we all know the players that are likely to go. You know, you look down our team and you can work it out for yourself. It's not difficult. Then we used to lose a lot of players out of the under-20s. So the national under-20s used to go to World Cups and get picked off. We did a couple of things. I won't tell you what we did because, you know, state secrets. But we did a few things last year that when we went to South Africa for the Junior World Cup last year, we didn't lose a single player we wanted out of that squad. We already had, I think, 2 of them in it, or 3, and then we picked up another 5. All right, 3 from Fiji, 2 from New Zealand, but we're playing for the Fiji under-20s. So the ones we wanted from that cohort, we got. And I think we'll do the same this year. I don't think it'll be as big a number, by the way, but I do think we'll do the same. So I think our recruitment out of the 20s, that pathway from the 20s to the Drua development to the Drua main squad, is pretty strong now, and we work really well with the FIU's HPU. The third bit, where we're not so strong, and that's why we need to run new programs, is we are still, as a country, losing too many of our best young players between the ages of 15 and 18. And they go to Australian high schools, New Zealand high schools, Japan, and then stay in Japan to go to university. The NRL, but that's a bit later, they tend to go at 17, not 15. And France, again, 17, not 15, to become what they call GIF qualified. In other words, to count as a French player for the purposes of their quotas. So we lose as a country, and therefore us as part of the country, we lose too many of our very best players in that 15 to 18 age group. So we're going to, I think I've said this publicly, so I'll say it again. I think, so we are going to put some more resource into that age group, those age groups. And we're going to start a Drua Academy process whereby we will contract 15, 16, 17-year-olds, not for a huge amount of money, but into the Drua program. And we'll run an academy program, not instead of their schools. We want them playing for QVS and Arcade and Natambua and Marist. And we want them playing.
Supergrama, so you got to say Supergrama.
So I did say Supergrama.
That's right. Better not forget that.
No. Once in 44 years. So we want them playing for their high schools, okay? But we don't want them just to be sitting there just to get picked off, right? So we've got to get better at talent ID at 15, 16s to then put them into the Drua Academy, and then a percentage of those, not all, because, you know, it's a tough business, a percentage of those then will go into Drua development, and we'll still recruit the odd player from Skipper Cup, late developers. We'll still recruit for the under-20s, but we've got to get better at identifying the best talent earlier. And we'll make mistakes, and we'll identify a 16-year-old who never makes it for a whole host of reasons, some playing, some not.
Yeah.
But those 3, I'm very passionate about this, that's why I'm taking so long to explain, but those 3 things are all part of a piece. So making sure we don't use our senior players too early, and hoping and working hard to make sure some of them come back and start with the Drua and finish in the Drua, and Europe's and Japan's the bit in between. The under-20s, which will always be, because the HPU do a good job, you know, they've got a good programme, but it tends to be a sort of 17, 18, 19, and I think we want to go a bit younger than that, because there's an awful... You look at our team now, people like Stino left at 15, you know, Junior Ratuva went at 16, you know. Now, all right, they've come back, but they've come back not because it went well, because it didn't quite work out for, again, one reason or another. So, and there was nothing to stay for as a 15-a-side player in those days. So what were you staying for? Of course you went. You know, that was your best chance, unless you were a sevens player. And at 16, you're a long way off the sevens team. You're looking down, that's 5 years away maybe, if I'm lucky. So of course you're going to take the opportunity to go offshore. So that's our next big project, I suppose, is to say, right, can we put something together that is attractive to young boys and eventually girls, but particularly to start with young Fijian boys, where they can stay on the island, stay at their school, play in Deans, but still know that they're on a pathway to professional rugby if they're good enough. And let's be fair, this is a pretty cutthroat business. You know, you've got to be good enough. But at the minute, or historically, and still now, I could roll off 3 or 4 boys who've left within the last 12 months who I would like to have stayed, and we just didn't have a program to put them in.
So when is this program starting?
We'll get it up and running, and the first cohort will come in sort of August, September time.
Q3,
this year?
Yeah. Our financial ends.
Shane, you got the money lined up for?
Yeah, I've got the money. We got the money.
Don't worry. Very good partners.
Don't worry.
All 42 of them.
No, we've got it. We can finance it.
Yeah.
That's great
so
news for Fiji.
Now we need to talk to. We're actually got a meeting tomorrow. You know, we need to dovetail with the FRU. We don't want to duplicate what the HPU are doing. But you know, we are able to create something, and if we do that successfully, and we got to do it well, just doing it isn't enough, you've got to do it well, then I think you will within a couple of years be able to see, and this is what we're aiming for, you know, and they won't all do this, some will come in later, but a boy comes into the program at under 16, plays in the we don't run a team in the academy, but he's in the academy for 2 or 3 years. Then he leaves school and he goes into Drua development or the HPU unit, because some boys will go into that because there won't be enough spots in development, and they can still play for the 20s, and we could then recruit them later, then into the main squad, and then some will stay all the way. So some will start at 16 and go all the way to 32, 33. Some will go 16 to maybe 26, go to Europe, come back, finish their career with the Drua. And that example, for example, is where a lot of our professional coaches will come from. It's very, very hard to coach at Super Rugby level and above if you haven't had the experience of being in a full-time professional operation and organisation. It's super difficult. In Europe it's super difficult now. You look at the people who coach, it used to be people who hadn't necessarily played at a particularly high level. Those days are virtually gone. You look at all the coaches who come through now, they've all played professional rugby. They've all been in it since they're 16 through to 35 or 32. That's what they do, and then they transition and become a coach. So in the medium run, I'm also feel that's where a lot of our Drua coaches are going to come from. They're going to come from people who, like take someone like Masaki Donny, for example, who's maybe got 3-4 years left. He's a tight head prop. They tend to go on forever, right? But at some point, he'll retire. Wouldn't be at all surprised if he comes and ends up being the scrum coach for the Drua in 3, 4, 5 years' time, and then maybe go on from there, because that's where you get your it's extraordinarily difficult to do it now without having been immersed in a professional full-time. It's not the professional thing, that's the full-time thing. That's what you do every day, year in, year out. You learn so much. It's very hard to do it without having been through that. And that's where I think a lot of the Fijian Drua and national coaches are going to come from in the long run.
A lot of mindset now changing, of course. We now have the Drua not having a camp set up, which was always the case in the past. We now have this basically a dream coming through and becoming a reality in August, as you said. Something that we've talked about for years in terms of the pathway of the young rugby players, up and coming rugby players, their pathway all set. And you're saying from around 15, 16-year-olds having that dream, and it's the sky's the limit for them if it does happen.
I think the pathway that currently the FIU have got is pretty good, right? It's pretty good. The one, and it's a resource thing, you mentioned it yourself, but the bit where the leakage is mostly in is really quite young. You know, they're not leaking out the 20s. So Masaki Bote didn't leak out, right? He's with us, and he didn't play rugby till he was 17, and the HP, goalkeeper, and the HPU, credit where credit is due. The HPU did a great job with him. They and whoever his provincial coach was and co team were, they did a really good job with him, right? So it's not like we're trying to take over and get rid of that's rubbish. No, that we're trying to supplement it and add to it and maybe take it a bit younger because our perception is that's where you look at people who come onto the island, they don't go and look at under 18 deans, they go and look at under 16. We know that, right? And that's because why are they doing that? Well, because it's a 2-year scholarship at a high school, so you can't. There's no point looking at the 17s and 18s in the deans.
Yeah, exactly.
All the scouts and all the other people are looking at 15s and 16s, and that's where we think we can make a difference.
Yeah, even if your school doesn't make it to the quarterfinals.
Exactly.
Which is the other thing is, we get side of schools where they qualify, but there's a lot of great players from schools.
There are
who don't reach the quarterfinals,
and in hard to reach areas as well.
Exactly.
You're watching Fiji Village Straight Talk. I'm Vijay Narayan. We'll be back after this break.
Wait, where am I?
Oh, you died, bro.
I'm dead? But why?
Gori, that's what happens when you change your playlist when you're driving?
Crashed.
What? No, this can't be happening. I had so much left to do in life. All I do is stare at my phone because I'm Gen Z and we're all anti-social. And I wish I did so much, but... By the way, do you guys have Wi-Fi up here?
This is why you should have listened to F96 Drive. You shouldn't let them play that music.
And you just drive.
No! I can't believe this is happening. It wasn't
when you're
even
done,
my car and I didn't have
hell is
cars.
that way, eh?
Wait, what?
Okay, set. It's hooked up now.
Are you ready to take your lie detector test? Sit. Ready.
He's lying.
Why are you lying to me?
I'm not lying to you again.
Liar!
So, I wouldn't lie to you guys, honestly.
Really? Con man.
Okay, so now we're getting somewhere. I need you to stop all your little silly games and tell me what I want to know.
I don't know what you want to know.
Gory, but he bluffing.
You tell me what's the least popular radio station in Fiji?
FM 96. Huh?
Yeah?
You lie.
Shit. Eh?
I'ma kick back when you fake like that. I'm a head out of the game, I don't play that back. Would you let me go? No, you never come back. I'ma be that best that you never had. I'ma kick back when you never.
Welcome back. You're watching Fiji Village Straight Talk. I'm Vijay Narayan. We've got the Drua CEO Mark Evans and Drua Head of Commercial and Marketing Hussein, and we're talking about the Drua franchise, the professional development, how the transformation has been taking place behind the scenes, what is expected in the future, how do you see the games being played now, and how we're faring, of course, on the field, on game day, all being discussed. Now about the women. You managed to get that transition towards the end of last year, I think around December. A successful transition of the Rooster Chicken Fijian Drua women's team becoming part of the Drua franchise. A lot of people in Fiji actually didn't know that the women's team was not part of the franchise. If you can explain to our people, because we got attacked for it, why are you getting more access to the men's team, little to no access to the women's team last year and before that? What has changed now?
Well, I suppose what's changed is that, and I understand the confusion because I got confused, and people also got confused between the Fijiana Drua and the Fijiana. So I totally get how people got confused, and people used the wrong words, the wrong terminology, and all
commentators got it wrong all the time.
Anyway, so we've taken over the management and the running of the Fijian Drua women's team, and that's what we call it now. The Fijiana is the national team. The Fijian Drua men, Fijian Drua women. It's more, most teams are doing it like that, although I see a move away from it in New Zealand a little bit, but leave that, be that as it may. So it was pretty late in the day before we came to an agreement with the FRU to move them over, because it's quite a complicated business. You had to, what you do with the sponsors, what do you do with the the cost base, when do you pay up to that point, and when do we take it over, and all the rest of it. But anyway, that all got done in the end. Maybe a bit slower than we might have hoped, because, as I said earlier, it pushed us into a camp base. We just didn't have an option. It would be totally unfair to ask the girls to have moved at such short notice. It just wouldn't have been possible. But it's done now, and you know, it was first game of the weekend. Shane's going, and Nico, Andre, our GM of football, is going as well.
Repeat of last year's final.
So I'll be holding the fort in Hamilton, so it'll all go horribly, horribly wrong.
Better not go wrong. They're going to the field though.
Anyway, but I know Shane's been very, very closely involved in it. Maybe you want to say a few words on it.
The team's fantastic. It's a squad of 33 at the moment, with a couple of additions because of some injuries, but 10 rookies. So it's got some experience already from Super Rugby Women's. The competition name has been tweaked a little bit too. So we got to keep on top of all these changes because of our participation agreement. The team runs out this Sunday in the repeat of last year's final. It's an exciting squad first up, and it's also we gotta say it's a new coaching group led by Moses Rauluni, a former Flying Fijians captain. Moses is very aware of the Super Rugby Women's competition. He was an assistant coach of the Reds women last year, so he knows obviously his way around. It's a new management team looking after the women, obviously with the support of the entire Drua franchise. So that's coming along, Vijay. It's wonderful to have the women as part of our setup. The sponsors love it. We've got some sponsors who are actually featured on both kits. Some like Swire, Rooster Chicken, obviously the naming rights. Sponsor of the women, they add a great dynamic. And what we're particularly excited about is next week. Yes, we're excited about this week. But next week is the first double header that we will run, first time ever, under the Drua franchise, back-to-back men's and women's games. We went out of our way to get the competition to change the kickoff time, so the women actually kick off after the men. So 1:05 kickoff next weekend, Drua versus Waratahs men, and a 3:35 kickoff straight after that, Drua versus Waratahs women. It's going to be fantastic.
Both at Churchill Park, 1:05 p.m. next Saturday. Yeah. The men.
And we know that this year's team is a little bit more inexperienced.
Yes.
And a number of players have moved on for a whole variety of reasons.
Especially the senior.
Some went to rugby league, one went to New Zealand, and that's just the way it is. But they've done fantastically well for the last 2 seasons. But there's a lot more money going into women's rugby in Australia. So there's no question about that. So they're better resourced than they were. They've got more full-time athletes than they used to have. They've got 45 full-time women rugby players in Rugby Australia now, which is centrally contracted. So, the competition level will rise. But what I find most encouraging about it is you look around the schools and you look around the provinces, and you see how many young women are playing the sport we all love. And you see the talent that there is. We may, as the Drua, have to go through a little bit of a transitional period. That happens when you've won a couple of titles. That always happens.
The target's on your back.
Whatever. But I'm incredibly confident. And again, a bit like the men's team, one of the reasons for doing it is improve the national team. Because although the Drua, let's be frank, although the Drua have, as in its Fijiana in
year 1 and 2,
in a sort of version, won it 2 years running. But the Fijiana national team is quite a long way down the rankings, and came up through the last World Cup, obviously, and everybody remembers the great wins in that campaign.
Yeah, South Africa.
But historically, the position of Fijiana has been quite a long way down compared to the men who were nudged into the top 10 on various occasions, including recently. So we do think we can help improve that situation in the medium term. It does, and that's why it really is a joint venture between the FRU and ourselves. So the franchise program isn't long enough to justify full-time athletes at all. So you had to bring the two programs together, and we pay for a certain amount, FRU pay for a certain amount, but you can have a Fijian Drua women's contract, or you can have a joint contract that covers you for the national team as well. And the same for the staff, people like Moses, and people like Sarah Maya Bai and others. So I think it's a really, really good model. I think it's the best way to improve the standards of A, the national women's team, and B, to get the next version of the Fijian Drua's women's team, really motoring. And I'm absolutely convinced that when we move the whole operation and get rid of the camp culture and put it onto this is where you live, this is where you come to work, this is your place of work, I think that will make a big, big difference. Over time, not maybe immediately, but over time.
Also with a young age profile, similarly.
Incredibly young profile.
18, 19 year olds, Nolani Basalala, you have Eva Sawira, quite young, but someone like Eva's come back from New Zealand, so re-engaging with her roots. Those are some of the wonderful stories along those lines that exist already in the Drua women. Sister Rasulia, who was outstanding, had an outstanding Rugby World Cup, obviously won the game against South Africa for the national team. Like, she's in the squad, she'll be getting ready to show up in the team sometime later in the season. She's recovering and gets her way to rehab. But there's some wonderful stories about young Fijian women coming back home and reconnecting with their roots.
Well, one of the biggest things achieved as far as women empowerment is concerned in the country in the past few years has been this big push, where the Fijian Drua women have played a big part in, and which has resulted in some secondary schools competitions now. Gaining more interest and
incredibly encouraging.
And the main ground belonging to some of the women's games now, which was unheard of before. In terms of salaries as well, we had some girls on the show last week where they said before they would go for training and would be lucky if they get $100 paid in 3 months. Most of their training sessions, they just did it for the love of the game. So
out of pocket.
Big changes there, and thanks for that management decision that we will now have no camp structure, and just like you're going to work, signing off contracts, and that is expected for the Drua women.
And if I may say so, this is one of the few countries in the world where there is genuine mass interest in the men's and the women's team. I don't think I'm being. I don't think that's contentious.
Ooh, New Zealand?
Possibly, yeah. But it just shows the depth of love there is for the sport in this country.
Yeah.
And there is a huge opportunity, I'm absolutely sure, both at 7s and 15s in the medium term for the Fijian women's teams, whatever, 7s, 15s, franchise, national, whatever, to really make an impact globally. I do firmly believe that. You've touched on it. You only get that explosion in secondary school teams and club teams if there's a genuine passion. You can't manufacture that. Okay, you just can't, and you don't need to manufacture in Fiji. But I talk to people and say, well, I can remember 5 years ago, certainly 10 years ago, how many women's rugby teams were there on the island? I mean, hardly any.
Yeah.
People tell me hardly any. Look at it now.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic story, and we've only just scratched the surface. I'm sure about that. And I also want to just give a big shout out to some of the corporate support, because they've got behind the women's team in the same way they've got behind the men's team, and I'd like to thank them publicly for that. It makes a hell of a difference.
Yeah, so
truly grateful for that. And just as part of growth development in the professional sport, issues that you believe you've had successes in, there's some challenges. Game venues, we definitely have seen this year more games in Lautoka. We've had people come and why the Drua is spending more time in the west, less on this side, and we said there's challenges in terms of venues, as you would understand. If you can explain to our people, please.
Sure. Look, we are a dual centre club. Our preference is always and will always be to play roughly half the games in Lautoka and half the games in Suva. It's 3.5 hours away. I mean, very few people, we've got the data, very few people, those who do, we're very grateful, but very few people travel all the way from Suva to Lautoka or vice versa. And people live in Singatoka, then they're going to travel both wherever we're playing.
They're halfway in the middle.
But I think it's fair to say that we're not playing many games in Suva this year. It's not wasn't what we wanted to do. We had no choice. We couldn't get a guarantee from the stadium in Suva that it would be ready in time for the games we scheduled there. And people have to understand that a Super Rugby game, you can't just flick it and just say, oh, well, we'll change it this week, we'll go there instead. I mean, it's particularly with the broadcast and where people are and where equipment is shipped to and where teams book their hotels 3, 4, 5 months in advance. It's a long-term planning business on that side of things. So we couldn't take the risk that all the work that was being done around the track wouldn't impinge on putting on a pretty big event. So, you know, we took the view that, right, we'll do 5-2 split. That's not what we want to do. But I think it's fair to say both venues have still got their challenges. You know, there are no lights at Churchill Park. Now that really means that really limits where we're going to do our first night game this year at Suva. It's going to be, we're really interested to see how that goes.
It's a Friday night.
And it's a Friday night. Is
game.
it popular? Or is it too hard to get home afterwards? Or what is it? How's that? We really don't know. But we're very interested to find out. Can't do that at Churchill Park. It's always sort of, you know, 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon because the lights. Not because they haven't got lights. It's the lights can't support broadcast. And
for Super Rugby.
For Super Rugby, yes. Sorry, not for. But they don't meet the minimum standards for Super Rugby. Yeah. So clearly, we'd love to see, and so would Lautoka City Council, to be fair, we'd love to see better lights at some point being introduced, being at Lautoka. Suva, on the other hand, is something that we need to secure dates. It's. I mean, I know you know this from your own business. You know, these things have to be scheduled a long time in advance. To be fair to Sanzar, they get the fixture list out pretty early.
Yep.
And as I say, we would always like to have 4. If we have 7 games, 4-3. If we have 6, 3-3. That will always be what we'll be after. So long as, you know, we can have a sensible, grown-up commercial relationship with both stadiums. I mean, I've hired stadiums all over the world for rugby, and you know, there's a pretty standard practice stuff, and as long as it's that, then it'll be fine. You know, we went down to Suva pre-season, as you know, and did a whole week at 3 or 4 days at Suva.
It was good.
Partly to compensate, and we really liked it, and the players really liked the change and all the rest of it. And we may well do that again next year, regardless of how many games split is. But I can assure people our strong preference is to split it reasonably equally.
A question for both gentlemen. Bowler round. What has been said about whether the bowler round should replace the super round, which was held in Melbourne?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've heard that too.
I saw a sign last year. I saw a sign with the.
Look, I think that's a really interesting concept, and I think that we're probably in a position to at least have a think about that, which I think 12 months ago we weren't. I think floodlights might have something to do with it, which we've already alluded to at Churchill Park.
Yep.
So both venues have got some challenges. The challenge in Churchill Park is floodlights, and the challenge in Suva is hotel rooms. Because the only way, let's call it Super Round for the minute, the only way Super Round works is through travel, in incoming spectators.
Tourism, yeah.
Tourism.
So that's all teams playing at one venue.
6 games or 5 games or whatever it is, all over the same weekend in one venue. You can't split the venue because you then have to have 2 sets of broadcasters. That doesn't
you could have it in Lautoka because of
Lautoka would need floodlights, but it's got the accommodation. Suva's got the floodlights, but it hasn't got the accommodation. So you know, we're going to have to think creatively about it. But we are going to have a look at it, and I think I won't going to say any more than that. We are going to have a look at it because it's. I suppose we've got more information than we had a year ago. That the independent study on the value of Drua home games to the economy made very interesting reading, and I think that if that's the economic impact 6 standalone games had, and you're not going to lose those through hosting Super Round, you at least should examine the economic case for bidding for. Doesn't mean you're going to get it, for bidding for Super Round. But I mean, it will stand or fall by you have to be able to show night games.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you can't get the games in the weekend.
Yeah.
and you can't get it into prime time in Australia and New Zealand, and you have to have enough hotel rooms to accommodate, I think at least 2,000 people. I mean, 650 rooms just for the players and officials and
referees,
coaches
and
all and broadcasters. So you've got to find 650 hotel beds for 5 nights, let's say, without a single spectator. If you don't get a single spectator coming, you won't do it again because it just doesn't add up. So I think both of the venues have got, if we've got some work to do with either one or both of the venues to sort of see what can be done. And that's where we are with it.
And Tourism Fiji and maybe the government, the decision makers can look at that as there can be a lot of spin-off effects.
You might say that, Vijay. I couldn't possibly comment.
Interesting what happens in this space. Just Mick Byrne, he's in the shortlist for coach, Flying Fijians coach. Of course, Byrne has been a good coach for the Drua. You have said publicly that you're ready if he decides to leave. You have some succession planning in place already?
We do, but it's all a contingency at this point, isn't it? Because we don't know who's the successful candidate. And I've known that Mick was applying. He came to see me before he did so, and we agreed how that might work. So we're very relaxed about it. We obviously we're biased, and at the Drua we hope he gets it because he's our friend, and he's done a great job. So of course we think he should get it, but that's not in our control. That's not our decision.
Just another message, if both of you could share with the people watching, the fans definitely wanting to go to either of the games in Suva or Lautoka, where you have started off this bus package that started off last week, and you had about 5 bus loads going.
Yeah, that's right.
If you can explain the concept to the people.
Yeah, absolutely. As we know, we're playing 5 in Lautoka, 2 in Suva, but we know that there's enough interest for fans to come watch a Drua game live because nothing beats being there. Of course, we'll say that, don't we? We sell tickets to the game, but it really does. The atmosphere and the enjoyment you get, you couldn't possibly get it from watching on TV. So what we created, but understanding the challenges of getting to and from somewhere like Suva to Lautoka or vice versa, or Raki to Suva or Raki to Lautoka. So because there's no after hours public transportation is a lot less than normal hours. We've created these bus packages in partnership with some good bus companies, for example Show Buses, who where we've got a preferential rate. So we give a special pricing for the ticket, they give a special price for the bus. It works out to in some cases even from $39 per person. Take and multiply by 60 because that's what the bus can take. That is all the way from Suva side, even Nosori side to Lautoka and back. For $39, a return trip plus match entry ticket has a pretty good deal. So what we would really encourage fans to do, and people, you don't have just to do it with your work groups, you can do it with your village, your community group, youth group, if you're a student association, any kind of group you are. We just need a group leader to contact us, and if I can give the number, I will try to remember it, but I can never remember it. But the number is Tale from our office. Her number is 998-6905. You're more than welcome to contact her. We've had a lot of fun with the folks who came in the bus. Vijay from Suva to Lautoka. There's a corporate groups, basically group we were walking together, got together with their families, came on a bus. We all gave them flags. When they got there, they had a great time. And by the time they get back to Suva, it's just early evening. So you're not talking about midnight return. And this applies just as much to Suva games. You could be in Raki, you wanted to come and watch the game with your group, with your friends, with your community, with your work colleagues, whatever it is, we can organize the same. So it's open and affordable, we hope, to everyone, and we'd love for as many people to take advantage of it.
And we're doing it, not just the long trips. We're doing it Nandi to Lautoka.
Exactly.
We're doing it from Sigatoka to both places.
Naitasiri to
doesn't anywhere. Right. If you can get your group together, right? We'll supply the tickets and the bus for your group. and at a quite heavy discount, so you can come and enjoy the game.
Fun words from you, Shane and Mark, in relation to the importance of having a strong supporter base, strong financial base to be running a team like the Drua.
But you can have the final word. I'll just say this: you can't have a strong team without a good financial base, which comes from our corporate support. For many wonderful sponsors, all 40 of them are so good for us, and that is in turn based on the support of the fans. It's incredible to me, and I still sometimes sit down and wonder about it. As one of the people who was involved in the design of this logo, we're a 2.5-year-old brand. But to see it everywhere is we're very grateful for that. And someone showed me a picture of kids cutting up the Drua logo and sticking it on their school sandals and
off the
Aquaside bottle. That's right.
Bottles, yeah.
It's quite humbling for us to we are grateful for that support. We couldn't do this business without the support of our fans and our sponsors. We just can't get the teams on the field, Mark.
Yeah, well, look, we understand that for some people who live a long way away from either of the grounds or on one of the other islands and all the rest of it, you're a supporter, you buy the merch and you watch us on television live, and we appreciate that. We do. We really do. And that, so it's at the same, and a lot of our fans support us like that. We estimate something like 1 in 2 Fijians watch the game live on one device or other. We know that one of our distributors shifted 90,000 items of merchandise last year.
Just one.
Just one of them. So we are very grateful for that kind of support, as well as trying to fill the stadiums in the long run as well. Hence the bus program and the discounted tickets, because Shane's put it very well. This running a professional sports team and wanting to win, and we make no. I think I've said this publicly as well. I'll say it again. Our aim is not to compete. Our aim is to win it. We want to win it within the next 5 years, and to do that, you have to keep driving revenue, which you then reinvest. And match day revenue, people coming and paying their hard-earned money for a $20 ticket on the bank or a seat, which is a bit more expensive, they're equally valuable. We're equally valued by us. We really want to get. So at the moment, we have got the best fans in the world, and the pictures are great and the videos are great, but what we really want to do is, there's about, like last weekend, there was 8,000 there, okay? 8,000 wonderful fans. Probably about 400,000 wonderful fans watching on television. We'd just like 3,000 of you to come to the game instead, all right? That's basically it. Because that would make the match day even better. Yeah. If we could get another 3,000 people coming every week to Lautoka, and based on last year's numbers at Suva, about another 4,000 coming to Suva, we could take it up to another level. It does, it does generate more revenue, but that's what we push back into the teams. Like the pathway systems we're going to bring in next year. That's what we do in terms of keeping the players at the club for longer, because we can pay them a little bit more.
The women's team.
Improve the facilities at Langa Langa, put more resources into the women's team. We're not like the European teams. We haven't got a sugar daddy. We haven't got anybody writing a check behind us. We've got to make our own money. So we've got to keep being creative and give our fans value. But honestly, we'd love you to come. But if all you do is buy a T-shirt, that's cool. We're very, very grateful for that too.
Very grateful indeed.
Mark and Shane, always a pleasure to have you on Straight Talk. And the message is clear to the fans out there. When you support the team, it goes a long way in supporting the players and the franchise as a whole. The reinvestment and all the work that goes into it, the pathway development, the women's rugby development, all of that coming together as one. So until next week, have a great evening.